what's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Iron Deep podcast. I got a friend on the show with me, Mr. Aaron Chapman. What's going on, Aaron?
Listen, brother, it's been a while.
Yeah, man. Super excited to have you on the show. I know we've actually done some podcasts in the past, and a lot is going on with just everything, right? The world, the real estate industry. Aaron Chapman, you come with decades of experience in the finance industry and the mortgage industry. You got kind of this insider knowledge of, what's going on with the interest rates, what you're thinking about the future. And this is what this show is really going to be diving into about, what are we to do as real estate investors and entrepreneurs with the economic environment. You also have a book coming out that we might dig into, and you do a lot of charity events as well. You're really getting behind the Operation Underground Railroad and the human trafficking. That's coming to light and everything, obviously with the new movie that just came out, Sound of Freedom. But let's just talk about Aaron Chapman. Give us a little bio, give us a little background of who are you if they haven't heard of you.
Well, so you just said a massive mouthful of all the stuff that we can be talking about and be getting into in this little conversation. Because when I think about it, it's like, I'm just living life minute by minute, just attacking what's in front of me. And then when somebody tries to sum it all up, I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on. And I don't know that. I don't know that I had the physical capacity to handle all this stuff, but my background came from running heavy equipment, working the mines. I actually started on a cattle ranch in high school with the family. Honestly, cheated my ass off to get through high school. The only reason I even made it is because I engineered a C because I could pick locks. I found where they stored all the tests. I figured out how to get into the office, how to make copies, how to shrink them, and then literally I'd trade that for homework, and I had a little business going on, if you will, and I made my way through it that way. And then I went to the oil fields of Wyoming, and I started learning, how to work in that environment. It's really, really different environment dealing with people of that type. Really great people. You got the vast difference between the guys who are down in the trenches getting the work done, hard men, and then the guys in suits are trying to tell them what to do. And you see that dynamic swing between those two things. The educated guy who understands the theory of what's being done, and then the guy who actually knows the practical application of it, and how sometimes the two don't quite meet. And it was interesting to watch that. Then went from there to running heavy equipment. Then in the mines in New Mexico, got let go from that because they were shutting down the project. Came back to Arizona. My wife and son were here. I come back and forth every 13 shifts for 6 days. And thought I'll get a job anywhere. Should be easy to get a job. And couldn't find a job to save my life. And it got to a point where I was going to I was going to apply for a $10 an hour truck driving job to haul landscape rock. And as I went to this place to apply for this job, I ended up getting hit with the same thing I kept hearing, which is overqualified. And it was just killing me that this was going on. And I was at the point where I was so broke that my wife gave me a coupon for free diapers just to get diapers for my kid. And as I'm going to the grocery store, my gas light comes on. So I had to pull up to the pump, ran my debit card, said a quick prayer, got a decline, rifled through my truck, looked for a couple coins, found some of those, locked the doors of my truck, and I walked that parking lot for it felt like a couple of hours to find enough change to get 2 gallons of gas. Now, 1997, you could use 2 handfuls of change to get 2 gallons of gas. It was possible. Couldn't do that nowadays, right?
That's right. It was 94 cents a gallon, something like that.
It was easy to be able to get that.
Yeah.
So went into the store, took my coupon, got the diapers, and then I had my head down just trying to get out of there. And a guy recognized me and called my name. And he invited me to dinner, and he introduced me to this industry. And I got to thinking about this. I've known that guy for years. He introduced me to this industry. I started as a telemarketer in December of 97. Like, if I took just an extra few more minutes to find those coins, I didn't find enough of them, or I found them really, really quickly, I would never have seen Keith. That would have never have happened. Wow. And this industry is so freaking hard, especially starting as a telemarketer in 1997. I mean, think about this, guys. Today the industry is down to, we have the same application level for mortgages that we had in 1996. I got into this in 1997. What was the prevalent way to get on the internet? Use AOL. Right. So we didn't have, when you were filling out a loan application, it was in triplicate. There's people going to hear this podcasts have no idea what triplicate is. You're gonna have to look that up. If you got a fax, the stuff would roll up, right? So if you weren't careful, you would have smudged the fax and you had to get a new one. It was interesting times. We're back at those times as far as the level of uh, implications, the interest rates, all of that's very, very similar. But when I think about what I had to go through to get into this, and it was just hell. The industry just building up into it, coming from my background to this, to now being ranked number 7 in the United States of 1.1 million people that do my job. The average person in my space right now closes between 0 and 1 transaction per month, and we're taking on 100 new applications a month. I'm very blessed. But blessings come from a beating. And this whole process of getting here was just getting the hell beat out of me the entire way. I got the opportunity to go through the crash in this industry. I got to see that firsthand and what drove that. And I didn't see it coming. All these people was like, you're in the industry. How do you see it coming? Like, that came in a way that nobody understood. And there's guys that were running companies. I was a miner, for crap's sake. I came off a cattle ranch. How am I going to see that? But my eyes are open now. I can see what's happening in the background a little bit differently what I could see there. But I got the blessing of being able to go through the crash from a hospital bed, because August 8th of 2008, 8's my lucky number, interestingly enough, it always has been. I got taken out about 80 plus miles an hour by a kid in his dad's truck. I woke up in a hospital with my memory was completely, well, it wasn't completely wiped. I had patches of memory, but it would last every 3 minutes. And so I'd have to reset every 3 minutes. And so I got out of the hospital in a wheelchair, had to learn how to walk again, train my brain how to work again, and come back to an industry that was obliterated. And that's when I stumbled into the turnkey real estate investor, working their way into Arizona. And then from there, they went to Indiana, then to Texas, and then Missouri, and then around the country. I just stuck with them. And what was funny is how many people kept telling me, quit doing these damn loans. They're only like $50,000 a piece. Yeah, it sucked. I wasn't getting paid for crap. But I was doing the loans, and we're doing, it'd be 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 of these now, and it was 150 of a month. But the price points got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's how we became number 7 in the United States, by just sticking with what got me there. And it was a mentor of mine telling me one time years ago, he says, no matter what happens, no matter what shiny objects you have, you stick with what got you there. And by doing that and maintaining that focus and that direction, we are still able to keep trucking through this real tough time in the market when the industry itself is just getting obliterated. And it's not easy for us. It sucks. I'm not loving let me change it. I'm not loving what we're in the middle of, but I'm still loving my business because of the people I interact with. I have such great relationships with so many great people that it makes it worth keep going. Plus, the conversations I have, even like conversations like this, I want people to walk away from a communication with me feeling like I can get this done. And the only way they're going to get that done is having somebody in their corner that's encouraging them and gives them the information they need to be successful, whatever it is they're choosing to do.
No, I love that. That was, thank you so much for sharing your background, Aaron. The one nugget that I think that I want to just to kind of repeat is what your mentor told you, and don't leave what got you here. I was having a conversation with a real estate investor, and again, we've all been going through a lot of challenges, and a lot of us are thinking about, well, maybe I should do something different. Maybe this is getting too hard. It's getting too challenging. Maybe I'll start a different business, and I've even thought those thoughts too. Maybe I want to do something else. I've been doing this so long. Maybe I'll go do something else. And I have been doing some other things, but I want to just be clear that sometimes we just forget how hard it is, number one, to start something new, something that we're not familiar with, and just it's easier just to stick with what you've been doing, with what got you here, to stick with it. Because I told this other guy, he said, I've been doing this 10, 15 years. Man, I'm just tired. I'm burnt out. I think I want to do something else. I think I want to do something new. And I was just telling him, because he's in the same business I am, we flip a lot of houses, do wholesaling and rentals, things like that. And it's like, man, there's just nothing like, you've learned so much. I think you should stick with it. There's nothing like this particular business. I mean, look at all the other businesses. There's just nothing like it. So I just encourage him to stick that out. And I look at you, 25. I mean, you could have did a lot of different things in the middle of all this, but you're continuing with what's got you here. And I want to go into the background. So you also mentioned what's happening in the background. You didn't see what was going to happen during the crash. Obviously, maybe you're learning some things in the background now. You've talked about that it's been a challenging time for you. Can you take us in behind the curtain a little bit? What's going on in the background of the economy, the interest rates, real estate investors? What's some of the chaos going on in your world?
In fact, if I have the capability to do some share screen here, I'll show you guys something that you probably may have never seen. It's people who've actually maybe followed me on my YouTube channel, where I share things about the economy and I share things about real estate investing, where I can get into that a little bit more, where they get to see this. So let me share with you right here. This, where interest rates come from really is the mortgage-backed securities. It's a pool of capital going into a place, and then we take it back out to work. As long as there's stuff flowing in there, the more that flows in there, the more that we have the capability to think of it this way: supply and demand, right? You go to an auction. Let's say me and you, Brett, we're going to an auction, and we're there with 100 people, and there's only one item being auctioned off, and we're all there for that one item. How expensive is it going to get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really expensive. Yes. But if there's only you and me going there, and there's 100 of the exact same item, we're going to walk out with one of those pretty freaking cheap, right? Mm-hmm. We happen to go to the one place that had the collection of it, and they're like, "Oh, we want auctions off," but we're the only ones there. So that's where the benefit of the understanding the supply and demand thing. So what we have here, and I'm showing you guys the mortgage-backed securities all the way back to 2008. This is where the supply had gone and where the supply is at now, where it's been. So if we go all the way back here to 2008, we can see I drew this yellow line probably about 6-8 months ago to go back and say, where did we start? Where did the thing where quantitative easing started? What happened to the market the day that they announced quantitative easing? Now, that was October 20, what was that? November 25th, 2008, they announced quantitative easing. Do you know that term?
I do not.
Okay, it's interesting how many people have forgotten that term, because it was very prevalent back then, but it's just something we haven't talked about now. It's a fancy way of saying the Fed is going to, by way of the U.S. Treasury, dump a pile of money into the markets to spur the economy. So what you had was Hank Paulson, who was the Secretary of the Treasury, who was running, who came from Wall Street. His background was Wall Street, and so now he's coming putting his knowledge to work for the U.S. Treasury.
Is that part of like a lot of the stimulus checks, the stimulus money things that we would
a lot of the stimulus stuff was going on then, and then they started the buying treasuries and mortgage-backed securities and corporate bonds and just throwing money in there to keep driving stuff. Yeah. So you have that going on. Well, then you had Ben Bernanke, who was running the Federal Reserve, who comes from an education background, and he's taking his education in theory versus the guy in Wall Street. They came together and said, let's just dump trillions of dollars into this. So what this represents is this day right here. That line is the day they announced quantitative easing. And look, everything was below this line until they announced it, and all these investors started jumping in with them. And we have seen this. This shows the flood of money going in and staying in, continuing to go in, because it's coming out and being used for mortgages. They got to put more in. So it just keeps compounding it in there till we saw these 2% interest rates back here. Mm-hmm. Now, all this compounding capital came in till they decided in October 13th of 2021, we're going to do quantitative tightening. When they started quantitative tightening, it basically fell off the cliff. Mm. That means the Fed's going to stop dumping money in there. This represents $8.9 trillion being put in there. So when people, and the reason I share this with people, so when you look at these charts, you'll see where we're at now. We're here. We are worse than we were back in 2008, 2007, 2006. We're back to 1997 levels as far as interest rates are concerned. My business took off in 1998 when the interest rates dropped below 7% for the real estate, for people buying houses to live in. We got 6.875 on the rate sheet. I took on 5 new deals that weekend. I prayerfully quit my second job. I was still getting up at 3 a.m., working till noon, digging holes in the ground for people, then go to the office by 2, work till 10, sleep 4 hours a night for a year. Until the interest rates went below 7%, 6.875. I literally prayerfully talked to God and found out, when do I need to do this? I was getting killed. It was destroying me. So I finally felt comfortable leaving the one and sticking with the other. I've stuck with it ever since. And now that I look back on this and I see what's going on here, and you understand the background of the people who put this to work, you understand what they were doing a little bit more now. They took money created out of thin air, threw it into our economy, pushed interest rates down, drove us heavy into a massive consumption-based economy, pushed manufacturing and jobs way outside of our country, got people buying houses in a frenzy. Now they've locked the inventory up. Inventory is not going to move easily, especially when people have 2.whatever% interest rates. CNBC recently was saying, we're probably not going to see a lot of inventory until some of these ARMs start coming due. It's amazing what percentage of people got talked into adjustable rate mortgages, how many people got talked into balloon mortgages. And one of these things over these last 2 years, a common theme was, well, just take the lower, the ARM for right now and refinance and the rates go down. What makes them believe they're going down?
Right.
We already had a run where this was created. Inflation was blown through the roof, and now they've locked it all up, and they've really tightened up the inventory. And we know the hedge funds are on target by 2030 to control potentially 60% of the available single-family housing in the United States by 2030. That's all over the place. I'm not preaching anything new. I was preaching it new to begin with. Everybody's like, you're crazy. Where's that coming from? And now they're seeing the magazine articles. And now they're seeing the Wall Street Journal talking about it. Now they're seeing the New York Times talk about it. I'm like, dude, you were right. You're right. You're right. I'm getting that all the time. It's like, yeah, they're taking over. The only thing we as real estate investors can do to try and stop this crap is to go buy the houses. And, they're worried about the interest rate being so high. Guys, interest rate doesn't matter. It's a number on the scale. That's it. The problem that we've had for this whole run that I've shown, that whole 13 years on those charts, is it was very easy to sell cash on cash return as the metric for what you become the real estate investor or you don't. Prior to that, cash on cash return was not a thing. Taxes, it was a thing, but it was not the kind of thing that you focused on. When you look back pre-2008 crash, all that time back behind there, 1990s and early 2000s, people weren't getting massive cash flow. The rent raising was not real high. The interest rates were high. There were people that were just writing these things out and understanding the time value of money was working in their favor. And what I mean by that is, inflation's eroding our dollar's value so quickly because of the abundance of the dollar. So how I help illustrate that is in pre-1920s, they used to mint a $20 gold piece. It was 1 ounce of gold. It wasn't a pure ounce because it had a little bit of copper for durability, but mostly an ounce of gold for $20. You could walk into a department store and buy a suit, a tie, a shirt, a belt, a pair of socks, and a pair of shoes for that $20 gold piece. You can't walk into a department store and even buy a pair of socks today with $20. But you can buy all that with an ounce of gold still. Why? Because the gold's value hasn't changed. The value of those goods hasn't changed. The currency that we're exchanging for it is what has changed.
Sure.
And because it's eroding so fast, what I tell people is, guys, take the 30-year fix. Never listen to these fools who put you in the ARM situation. They're just trying to sell you. I'm trying to help you. Take the 30-year fix. Pay the minimum payment for the entire 30 years. Use your tenant's money to do that, because you'll never pay what you actually borrowed. And if you don't believe me, go just send me a message, send me an email, right? We'll send you you can go to your app store and look for the QJO investment tool. That's my app. It actually will calculate the time value of money. If you bought a $200,000 house, you put 20% down, you'd finance $160,000. You'll pay $402,000 in principal and interest, and that will mess with your head. Ignore that number, because every time you make a payment to the bank, it's worth at least 0.666% less than it was the month before. Because of that, over 30 years, that $402,000 stretched over 30 years is equal to $152,000. You paid $8,000 less than what you borrowed when you pay it very, very slow. But take those cash flows, take those monies that you're in the back of your mind thinking I should pay off my mortgage faster, invest it somewhere else. Let it compound. I'm a big fan of the infinite banking strategy. Continue to compound it over there, and then leverage the things and compound it again somewhere else. Leverage and compound, leverage and compound. You continue to do that, it's impossible to fail. In fact, we can do just a couple quick bits of math if you're up for it, Brett, and I can explain this to the investors.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so we've got, let's say that $200,000 house we just mentioned, and you're putting 20% down. How much is 20% of 200,000?
20,000.
No,
okay, I'm sorry. No, that's not right. 20% of 200,000 is 40,000.
40,000. I was going to say, everybody who's listening, check his math. So it's 40,000. So yes, I'm going to bust your chops on your own podcast. So 40,000. And let's say Just for the sake of round numbers, between lender fees, appraisals, taxes, insurance, all this stuff, you had to put up another 10 grand. Now you're investing 50,000, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now this is where your mind starts to trick you a little bit. You've got that 50,000 number in your head, but remember the 40,000. How much is your loan on $200,000 property by putting
160,000.
160,000. Now, if you did your job right, and this is the main job everybody has that buys investment real estate, that you bought in a place you can keep it reasonably rented for the entire time you own it, who pays 160,000 off?
Who pays 160,000 off? If you rent it out, the tenant.
So let's take 160,000 divided by 30, because that's how many years it's going to take your tenant to pay it off, and we'll get to see how much they're giving you every year, averaged over 30 years. I know there's an amortization table. That's not something we need to get into right now. So what do you got?
You're asking me. I don't have the calculator.
Okay, so I'll give you guys a number. I've done this so many times it's memorized. It's $5,333.34 is what you're going to find that is. That is equivalent to 10.6% of your $50,000 investment. You're literally increasing your initial investment of 50 grand by 10.6% every time, just by keeping somebody in the house and paying off the mortgage. That's it. So we already know you're making that much of a return on your investment. Now, let's take a look at this other thing. We live in this inflationary environment. Housing is going up. Do you know how much that houses are appreciating in 2023?
I do not, but I know it's going up.
It's definitely going up. So according to CoreLogic, according to Case-Shiller and Black Knight, they have all said it's about 8.8 to 8.9%. That's significant. In an interest rate increasing environment, everybody says the rates will push the prices down. That's not happening.
Right.
Why? Because cash is coming in and it's buying these houses. Hedge funds are keeping that going. Inventory is ridiculously low because there's too many people that have low interest rates. This is engineered in my mind. I think these guys did this for a reason, so they can start capturing all that and force the next generations to become this subscription-based society. But I'm kind of getting off the numbers here. Let's go back to those numbers. So 8.8 to 8.9%. So let's just say you only are getting 2.5% consistently for the next 30 years. What is 2.5% of 200,000?
Oh man, 2.5, 5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Quick math. You didn't even need to get your calculator out. That's a brilliant man right there. $5,000, which is another 10% on your 50 grand, right? So just by simply picking the place that people you believe would want to rent, and by picking in an environment that will at least do 2.5% appreciation, which is easy to find in the South and the Midwest, you are going to get a 20.6% increase on your initial investment of $50,000 every single year. Every single year, guys, averaged over that 30 years. That's before we get into cash flow. So that's before we get into tax benefits. That's before we get into the fact that you're not even giving back what you borrowed. And you get to keep the spread as you're raising rents. So you can even do those numbers. If you rent that place out for $1,800 a month and you only made $100 a month, every investor like, no, the cash on cash return sucks. I won't buy that house. I'm telling you, you're a fool. Because even if you only raise the rents by 3%, and nobody wants to buy in a place that's only getting a 3% rent increase, they're like, oh, where's the 8s? Where's the 10s? Where's the 12s? Right. A 3% on $1,800 is only a $54 a month increase. No tenant is going to move out for $54. So when you think about that, if you start only making $100 a month, now you're making $154, your rent went up by 54%, or your cash flow went up by 54%. Although lenders getting a compound decline because of the time value of money. Quit getting so wrapped up in these double-digit cash-on-cash returns and looking at people's Facebook posts of how badass they are because they got this cash-on-cash. The cash-on-cash returns that kick ass right now are in crappy markets that you really can't count on keeping that money because you have to keep fixing that house, having to deal with that particular kind of tenant. Be a lot more discerning about what you buy and understand that small movements on big things become big movements on small things. So a small movement on the larger rent itself is massive movement on that little cash flow. Just like the small movement on the pay down on your house, it's massive movement on the smaller down payment that you put into it. You have to put the right correlation of how these things work and understand that you as the real estate investor, just getting involved is going to completely just kill it. I'm actually closing on 2 properties out in Missouri. I've got money. I'm selling lots that they're not making my money. So I'm dumping the lots right now because people are paying a lot for them. I'm flipping those into single family residences. And then I'm also taking money from my infinite banking, paying cash for those, putting liens against my property so that I can do just literally do rate and term refinances and get my cash back out and put it back in. And now I have assets that I control for virtually nothing. Right. So, or at least very, very little, because it's going into the family trust. The kids are going to occupy those because, unfortunately, my adult children now, they are being forced out of housing in Arizona. There's just no way to be able to afford these things. Right. So our trust acquires them, lease them back to them at a profit. So they're really paying for their own future.
Amen. Well, you just thank you so much for, taking back the curtain, letting us know what you think. So I think the moral of the story, obviously you said a lot, but the moral of the story is people have gotten kind of this false sense of returns in the past few years, 5 years or so. And now we're just getting back to really, it's just, this is normal real estate investing. And a lot of people are locked up, over analyzing the market, over analyzing interest rate. I even had a conversation because I'm buying rentals now too. I even had an interest rate with one of the friends of mine and just saying, why are you buying rentals right now? You're going to bleed to death on them because of, I think he even said, because of the interest rates. And I feel like, I'm purchasing these right. They are cash flowing, but other people are starting to give opinions, and I'm sure they're all thinking opinions about now's not the time to buy. Interest rates are too high. I'm going to sit on my cash. I'm not going to do anything right now. And people are locking up. And your advice is to continue to get out there, put your money into the market, buy the houses as real estate investors, and stop being scared and paranoid because they're afraid of what happened in 2008. Is that kind of your moral, and is that your advice to them?
That's what I'm doing. And here's the thing: if it's going to be as catastrophic as they claim it could be, there's a lot of people claiming, huge catastrophe with real estate. It's going to be a lot more than just real estate. And where's your cash going to be sitting anywhere? Here's the other thing about me having cash sitting in the bank. I don't like it sitting in the bank.
Right.
We already know we had a bailout back in 2008. Now it's, hey, if you're in a bank, if your money's sitting with a failing bank, they have the capability to take your capital and give you stock. Right? They can do that. So your money's going to be gone anyway. Having it locked up in an actual asset, a usable asset that you can do something with, to me is the greatest thing that we can do. It's been preached that way from the very, very, very beginning. The problem that you have when people purchase and they leverage is, what are they leveraging for? And what are they doing with that capital? Where is it going back to? I try to keep my capital all on deployment. I don't like having it sitting somewhere. I like having it, I'll have it sit in my infinite banking life insurance policy waiting to just go back and get deployed. I got one back in 2016. It's interesting when you live through 2 different centuries, you've got, your mind wants to go back to the 2. Yeah. But so you've got, in 2016, I purchased one to put $90,000 into it. I had 83,000 available to me in the cash value to use. I have redeployed over $1.1 million from that since 2016. That's another thing I help people do. Understand how to use that infinite banking strategy to your benefit and become a machine to keep growing your assets. I had to start at zero, guys. 2016, think about when I explained before the 2008 crash. I went into that hospital that day. I was wheeled in there at 190 pounds. And I was a rock climber. I was a marathoner. I was a mountain biker, all these things. And I was worth about $3-ish million. I got wheeled out weeks later worth a negative 1.5 million in change with 156 pounds. Wow. My life completely shifted significantly the opposite directions. I had to crawl back from that. I had to learn how to walk again, train my brain how to work again. I had to go and pay off all these debts because I couldn't file bankruptcy. I had too many hard assets, but they were not liquidatable assets because the crash happened, right? I had real estate, I had cars, I had things, but they weren't worth anything. So bankruptcy is not going to help. You're going to take all those assets. You have way too many assets, but not worth anything. My attorneys had quite the battle. But it was interesting. I was able to take a little bit of capital and negotiate with everything. I had the best negotiating capability of anybody in the crash, because when they called me up, say, "Hey, why are you not paying your payments?" Like, here's my first $1.7 million medical bill for the first week of my hospital stay, and I've got 3 more weeks to send you. Right. So they backed off. So how can we help? I was blessed to be able to negotiate my way through that and take every single cent that I had and paid everybody off. And I got clear of all that. But I was at a 460 credit score after I left all that. And I had to crawl back from that and save that 90 grand. And by the time I hit 2016, my credit score was in the 700s. I had $90,000 start investing in real estate. That was my restart. Now I have, I don't know how much. I have real estate in 6 states. I've got a lot of things going on. Could it come crashing down again? Sure. Or you can sit here under your freaking rock and let your cash completely erode on you because the dollar's eroding at a pace of 12% per year. That's 1% per month. Your dollar's going away. They're not paying you anything to store it in the bank. They're charging you to store it in the bank, and they're hitting you at 1% because of what's happening with our economy. Or you can put it in a hard asset. Even we just proved it, 2.5% appreciation, which we know that's going to happen. You know, the hedge funds are not going to come barreling into this the way that they are and not push those prices up. That's what they're designed to do. These guys are doing that, and if you want to be on the, you need to decide which end of this whole subscription-based economy you want to be on. Do you want to be the person providing that people will subscribe to, or you want to be the one subscribing to things? It's common. We don't have a choice in this. I wish that we had a choice in this. We can't take to the streets with torches and pitchforks and stop this movement. It's happening because of the powers that be, and that they're going to digital currencies and all this kind of crap. I hope that we can prevent some of this BS, but the bottom line, I believe, within the next 2 generations, it will be pure subscription-based. It's a economy. BMW tried that crap and they got shot down. They would sell and check it out. You guys can find it. They sold, pretty much a high-end BMW for mid-range price, but you could subscribe for the features. You couldn't use your seat warmer unless you paid the monthly fee. You couldn't use your air conditioner unless you paid a monthly fee. You couldn't use your radio unless you paid a monthly fee. All these things. Now, I may not be exact on what features they put on a monthly subscription, but they tried that and they got shot down. They're going to keep trying.
Yeah.
Now, if you own the real estate, you'll be offering the subscription. If you don't, you will be subscribing.
Well, I love it. I love it. Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is awesome, guys. Get in the game. Keep doing what you have done to get you to the place that you're at right now. Aaron, I know we could have dove into a lot of different things. You're doing so many amazing things. I just want to kind of give you the opportunity to also mention you have a new book that is coming out into the future. You can talk about that. You're also doing some amazing things in human trafficking with Operations Underground. The Operation Underground Railroad, which obviously, my wife and I went and saw the movie The Sound of Freedom, and we've been talking about that. But can you kind of mention, you can mention about the book or the charity that you're involved with. But
the book will come back on. We'll talk about the book once I'm ready, because I don't know if anybody shared the forward with you or that stuff yet, but I've got the forward out there. Awesome. I'm still trying to come up with the freaking title. That's what's killing me is the title. And then I've got the editor, and then, I've got people working in the background on it. So it's going to be a few months so that's ready, awesome. But I want to come back on and really talk about the book. There's a lot of artwork with the book. In fact, I'll just share you the artwork with the forward right now so you guys can take a look at this. I thought you might want to look at this. So Robert Allen wrote the forward. I don't know if you know Robert Allen. And he said, you need to have some illustrations there. My brother's an artist. He read this book and he took every chapter and created its own piece of art for every chapter, like the illuminated manuscripts from like the 1300s, the 1200s, those religious type books. So it's a very irreverent book, but it's got that religious kind of a feel to it when you look at the artwork.
Yeah, no.
So when you look at something, everything, all the elements of the forward are in that, and I'll actually send you the forward if you want to take a look at it. So we can come back on, we can talk about the book when that time comes. Eric, I'd love to have him on the illustrator along with the author talking about it. So we'll push that then. Yeah. And then your question about OUR. So I watched a documentary about Tim Ballard years ago, and I got to meet this man. Mm-hmm. And it took me a little bit of time, but I got to not only just meet him, became very good friends with him. And before that movie, Sound of Freedom, was released, I've had an opportunity to see that several times in private viewings. Mm-hmm. Also got to know the director very well. Actually, bought a watch from the director that was in the movie. There was there was an AP being watched by the guy who played Paul. the director had that watch. And so we got to talking over tacos one day, and I made a deal, and I end up owning that watch now, which who knows where that value is going to be. But ultimately, it was awesome to get to know these guys and then get really, really deep into understanding what they're doing. And we've been trying to raise capital for several years. And I think we probably raised between a few events and what we've done internally, probably direct in impact was over $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Indirect impact, I don't even know, because then there's a lot of people that put on their events and their events and their events.
For sure.
Now, there's a lot of crazy press going on right now when it comes to Tim Ballard and his character, if you will, that people want to say. All I can say is I've spent a lot of time with this guy. Stuff that they say I have not personally seen. That's just not something I was there to be able to witness and say, yeah, he's this or that. All I know is the individual I was with. Very, very kind-hearted, very, very driven man he's seen some stuff that's really, you can see he wears a lot of weight as a result of things he's had to see and do. When he gets very passionate about something, he stood on Capitol Hill and raised hell with the legislators, calling them out for being complicit in what's happening to these children and to the people across the country and across the world. That's when hell got released on him. So you guys have to come to your own decision on whether or not you support this cause or not support this cause because of what the mainstream media wants to talk about one individual. And they held off on any conversation about him until such time he started calling out people's being complicit, and also the success of the movie. That took 5 years to get released.
Yeah.
Man, for me, I saw that way back, and in the battles that they were going through to try and get that finally released, and then it hits the ground. The second that hits the ground, and he's in a position to have a platform to make those kind of statements, now he's getting villainized. You guys just do your own damn math on that one. But all I can say is I agree with them. Children are not for sale, and they are literally under fire all the time. And this is a war that is not just a war on the person or on our economy, it's a war on our souls.
Yeah.
And what I find really interesting is that divisiveness has never been so prevalent in our world than it is today. What we have, technology is supposed to unify us and bring us together, but it's actually dividing us faster and faster. And I know you're a very, very God-loving Christian man, Brett. And what I find very interesting is how even us as Christians can find divisiveness in us following the same philosophy of Christ.
For sure.
This person's over here, a born again. This is Catholic. This is a Baptist. Sure. This is a Mormon. All of a sudden, we have all these. Why is there a problem? So it's amazing how divided we have become when it's unnecessary to be divided. We need to continue to unify the best we can, and whether it's unifying under Christ or whether it's unifying for whatever cause. I believe that if you're unifying under Christ, you can't have a better way to unify, and then you have somebody as an example on how we should all be. And if we're that way with each other, none of this has any power over us. So you doing this podcast, me coming on this podcast, the one thing I want people to be able to walk away from here is just be kind to the people around you. Know that they're going through something that's really, really tough, and be willing to share with them, be willing to help them, and be willing to just understand that person's no different than you are. They just need your help as much as you need theirs. So if we don't have each other, we don't have nothing.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for your heart and your passion. I totally believe just to unify together, especially, for Christ, but then in these missions, we all want, this horrific human trafficking industry to go down, and there's just, to bring light to the darkness. So I think, let's just all join together and unify in that. So thank you so much for being on the Iron Deep podcast today, Aaron. Appreciate you, buddy. And that's a wrap.
Thank you, man. Thank you, brother. Anytime.